So the Biden administration also established a COVID-19 fraud enforcement task force and increased oversight of programs that were being targeted by fraudsters. Minnesota lawmakers have also taken steps to reduce fraud in their state, strengthening the state's ability to stop potential fraud sooner and improving investigations to hold those scammers accountable.
If these safeguards worked, this hearing wouldn't exist, now would it? Hey everyone, this is Matt Wills with Defining Ethos. So today we're watching the congressional hearing about fraud. Now watch as Congresswoman McBath starts by saying all the right things and then uses that to misdirect the viewers watching this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for convening this hearing this morning to talk about the harm that fraud can cause. And thank you for everyone that is here this morning to testify. It's so necessary that we continue to investigate and prosecute all forms of fraud, including government fraud, which can turn many into victims. That is because a person committing fraud against a government program steals from all of us as taxpayers and abuses the initial purpose of these programs. They harm the organizations that need these programs to operate, and most importantly, they harm the people that the program is designed to help. Whether we're talking about a program that feeds school children, helps seniors find housing, helps people overcome addiction, or provides services to address disabilities, it is critical that the dollars that we invest in these programs actually serve the purposes that we have in mind when we, the lawmakers, created them. That's why the Department of Justice has always combated fraud, including prosecuting dozens of people for perpetrating fraudulent schemes in Minnesota in 2021 and under the Biden administration.
That whole opening is what's called a performative agreement. She's saying fraud is bad, we all agree, and that establishes a moral alignment with everyone who's watching this before she strays off into damage control. That way, if you connect with what she's saying morally when she's saying correct things, you'll be more likely to follow her as she misdirects you away from these exact talking points.
But prosecutions are not enough to combat or prevent fraud. So the Biden administration also established a COVID-19 fraud enforcement task force and increased oversight of programs that were being targeted by fraudsters. Minnesota lawmakers have also taken steps to reduce fraud in their state, strengthening the state's ability to stop potential fraud sooner and improving investigations to hold those scammers accountable.
If these safeguards worked, this hearing wouldn't exist, now would it? This is what I find so fascinating about this talking point. She's saying the government already has safeguards in place that the Biden administration put there. Okay, so task forces where each person makes 6 figures to investigate fraud? How? Bureaucratically? They're all a bunch of desk jockeys, and they found how many fraudsters? A couple dozen? Sounds like their employment is wasting even more of the taxpayers' money. Then some kid comes along to investigate the old-fashioned way, show up to the freaking place and verify, and it turns out many of these businesses don't exist. Or some do, but they aren't even acting as the type of business that they're being paid for. If this person actually cared about fraud and the tax dollars that we pay, she would be thanking Nick Shirley and advocating for fraud verification check-ins in her home state of Georgia. This is all damage control. There's nothing to see here. Don't believe your eyes. Bad actor stuff.
But President Trump has taken a very different approach to fraud. Just last week, Trump added quite a few fraudsters to his growing list of people that he has pardoned. Not because they are deserving a second chance, but because they hired his friends, back-channeled a donation, or served his political purposes. He has pardoned many people charged or convicted of fraud and other financial crimes, wiping away more than $1 billion in money that would otherwise have gone to victims of crime. President Trump has also fired inspectors general, instructed his DOJ to stop enforcing bribery statutes, and gutted the offices that investigate white-collar crime. That is how we know this hearing is not really about fraud. It is about trust.
Got it. So she has no interest of combating fraud here. She's just politically grandstanding. How can we talk about fraud when we have a fraud president? So this is why she opened with a performative agreement that was to lead you here. This hearing is not about fraud, it's about trust. So if you morally connected with her in the beginning and she led you here, she successfully pre-framed the hearing. That way you're not going to watch this objectively to understand the veracity of fraud, which is what this hearing is about. You're going to distrust all the sources you hear from because she told you to be on alert.
The Trump administration does not want you to trust these programs because if you don't trust them, they're easier to destroy them. They do not want you to trust entire communities because if you don't trust them, they're easier to intimidate. But we cannot let that happen. We will continue to fight for robust and responsible oversight and for the continuation of initiatives that make all of our communities safer, healthier, and more resilient. Across the country, there are daycares, schools, hospitals, treatment centers, research facilities, nursing homes, fire departments, police departments, airports, and more that all depend on state or federal funding.
All the more reason for the government to be good stewards of our money. You know, I read through and posted videos of an OLA audit report from Minnesota's Behavioral Health Administration grants, and there's no oversight. Not even documentation kept in most cases. The OLA said there's no way to track most of those grants due to how the department failed to document, audit, and verify. So if that's the relationship the government has with our money, we should have the ability to withhold our taxes from them. If that's your relationship with our money, you have no business managing it.
Not just to help those in need, but to serve every single one of us. If President Trump succeeds in an attempt to freeze child care funding across 5 states, which is temporarily blocked by a court order, the effects would ripple across families and businesses throughout our economy. It would affect more than 500,000 children, and these are children that are not just within the state of Minnesota, but 500,000 children, their parents, the businesses and organizations where those parents work, and the many people who depend on those businesses to fulfill needs in those communities. That's the fallout from just one program addressing one need across only 5 states. If President Trump continues this assault on critical programs, the harms could be far greater.
If those businesses were open fraudulently, how many of those numbers are even correct? I mean, look at the autism care centers. Many of those places were caught misdiagnosing their own kids as autistic so they could get grants. Does that now mean their kid is actually autistic?
These latest attacks come on top of the cuts that President Trump and congressional Republicans already forced through, which are taking health care from 10 million Americans and reducing food assistance to over 40 million Americans, including many, many children.
Here's what a lot of people don't understand when politicians say, this will remove X amount of people from what this policy provides. Well, how do you measure success of a policy? Is it by how many people are on it? Because if that's the case, then its ultimate goal would be to have the whole country on it. Or is it to provide to those who are in need? Because if that's the case, then we put those who are in need on it, then work towards making the working class more successful. As we do that, you should see people coming off of those programs, which would be considered successful.
We don't have to choose between programs that are susceptible to fraud and nothing at all. With proper oversight, we can make sure that every American is fed, that everyone can access housing and medical treatment, and that our daycares and our schools can keep guiding our children towards a better future. I look forward to hearing more today about how we can achieve this goal. I thank our witnesses for being here, and I yield.
So the hearing is about fraud. She starts out agreeing that fraud is bad, and by the end of it, she's just making an emotional case for government programs. All this was simply more damage control to protect cuts from government programs instead of focusing on the overwhelming fraud that occurs. As always, thanks for watching.